Hello everybody, it's Chris the Spyder Minimalist, and I recently hit 1,000 miles on the Spyder, and I told you when I hit 1,000 miles I'd give a kind of a brief review, and but more importantly list out the things that I'd like to see Can-Am change on the next model revise, which I'm guessing will be in 2026, maybe 2025, or maybe 2027, but at some point soon in the next couple of years they're going to revise this model. The RT Limited, the RTs have been around current configuration since 2020. The previous model year for the RTs was 2014 to 2019, so there'll be a change at some point, and I'm going to kind of give Can-Am and you my feelings about what I'd like to see change for the next revision. Many of these I knew about before I even bought the Spyder, based on some of your reviews, based on other things that I had read in comments I had read on the various forums. So not all of these are going to be a surprise really to anybody, and I'm not going to give them in any particular order. I actually wrote them down right here so I wouldn't forget anything. The items I'm about to list are in no particular order. So before I give you the 12 things I'd like to see Can-Am change, let me just start out by saying this is a great machine. I have no regrets on the purchase. I understand there are some imperfections in the vehicle. There are some reliability concerns that people have. I've commented on the seat shock, my seat collapsing, and it's now doing that like permanently. I think it's just permanently failed, and I'll resolve that with my dealer at some point soon. So the machine is not perfect, and I'm going to go through the 12 things that I'd like to see them change, but overall it's a great machine. It's a joy to ride. I've ridden it on the highway, I've ridden it in the city, I've ridden it in the twisties, stop and go traffic, and overall I have no regrets. I just love it. But in terms of things I'd like to see Can-Am change, first of all, I'm going to zoom in with the GoPro or stick my face at the dash. Notice you can see my speed, 44 miles per hour, and the tack, the RPMs are 4,000, now down to 3,500, 3,600 because I shifted. I like to see the RPMs. I like to see the tachometer. And I like to see that no matter what configuration I have this instrument panel. But there are times, and I'll show you right now, when the tachometer disappears, like right there. And now I'm gonna go to my trip meters. See, I can see a lot of information about MPG and about miles gone since my last resetting of the trip odometers. I can, if I want to see the total odometer reading, I can see that at some point if I scroll across, but I can't see the tack, and I'm going to just back out of that, and I don't like that at all. What I'd like to see Can-Am do is the next time they do a revise on the instrument panel. Now, I know they just did a revise, so those of you who have 2024 models, what I'd love to know is, did they just take this data system and overlay it on a larger TFT display with the Apple CarPlay option, with touchscreen capability, or did they totally revise it, in which case some of the items that I'm going to say they should change, they may have already changed. One of the things that I think is completely useless on the instrument panel for this year up until 2023 is they have the readout of the speed. You can see 46 miles an hour, I hope you can see it, 3,300 RPMs, and they also have this little digital gauge, almost like an old steam gauge. I don't understand the purpose of those dials, of those readouts like that. There's no markings on them, so it's not like you can see, if you didn't have the digital readout of 3,300 there, you could see it on the steam gauge, on the dial. I don't see that there's a red line anywhere, so I'm not sure why that's taking up valuable space. So here's what I'd like to see. If they haven't already changed it for the new displays for the 2024 models, I'd like them to take the RPM gauge right there, the RPM read of 3,200, and put it somewhere so that if I switch the display to look at some other information, I can still know what my RPMs are. Very simple change. I'm hoping they did it for the 24 model, but if they didn't, I'd like to see them do that. Another thing I'd like to see them change is the transmission. Now, I've talked about this in another video, and it's been mentioned elsewhere. This is kind of a hybrid. So there's no clutch, so I guess it's sort of automatic. It will downshift for you, although very imperfectly. Downshifting on your own is quite frankly more efficient. And you have to upshift on your own. So it's not an automatic transmission at all. But there is no clutch, there's no foot brake, there's no foot gear lever. I guess that makes it somewhat easier, but I would like to see Can-Am either take this to a true automatic, similar to Honda. The Africa Twin has a dual clutch transmission. I believe there's a bunch of Honda models that have the dual clutch transmission. Can-Am, please do something with this transmission. Either make it automatic. If you don't want to make it a full automatic, do something with it so that it's either both you have to shift up and down manually, or you don't have to shift up and down. The third item, going back to the instrument display, is I mentioned this on another video. I've had this thing for over a month. I don't know how to preset my radio stations, and I know I'm not the only one, because others have commented on it who've had Spyders a lot longer than I have. This whole instrument display is not user-friendly. It is not intuitive, and in some cases it is counterintuitive. Now, if you made it more intuitive with the 2024 models, then awesome, great job. But if you took the existing system and just put it on a TFT display with touchscreen capability, then go back to the drawing board for the next model revise and make this better, Can-Am, because this is not, for a machine of this level of price and caliber, you can do better than this, especially since I believe this came out in 2014. Back to this, but related to the tires, others have commented on this. So you have a tire system, especially with the rear tire, that makes it very difficult to check and to fill it with air pressure. Because of that, this vehicle is a logical choice for something that is desperately in need of a tire pressure monitoring system, so that on the dash somewhere I could see at all times a tripod that would show the front 2 wheels and the rear 1 wheel what the tire pressure was. It's 2028 is the recommended tire pressure. You'd come up with some kind of percentage. They'd go from green to yellow to eventually to red. But please, Can-Am, my understanding is you've not added tire pressure monitoring for the 2024 model for the new instrument display. Please do it with the 2025 or 2026 models. I'd really like that. Another thing that I can mention while I'm still riding, some of the things I'm going to mention I'm going to pull over because I can't do it safely while I'm riding. But another thing I'd like to see you do, Can-Am, so I don't have my charger on right now, but I've got a Apple charger cord that I put in the glove compartment. I had an aftermarket accessory charger for USB and 12 volt installed, and if I was going on a longer journey, I would plug in that charger that I have, plug it into my phone, plug it here. It is inconceivable. It's the year 2024. It is inconceivable that you can't figure out a way to put a USB charger here or up here. I understand 12 volt is going away. Okay, so you don't want to do that, that's fine. But this business about putting the charger cables in this box and you've got to hook up whatever you want to charge to that, it just doesn't make sense to me, especially when so many people complain about BRP Connect. So give us an external charger, and quite frankly, do it no matter what you do with this glove box charging system. If you decide to change that going forward, you still need to have an external USB charger somewhere on this dash. The next couple of things I'm going to mention, I really need to pull over, so I'm going to come up to a state park up ahead and I'll give you the rest of the rundown on what needs to be changed. Okay, so we're now in Fort Niagara State Park. I'm going to park somewhere where I'm far from anyone else, and there's a reason why I'm going to do that. Because one of the things that I want to see Can-Am change, and some of you are going to argue with me on this, and I get it, but but I still want to see them change it. So I guess before I mention that thing, one of the things I mentioned in terms of my first few items I'd like to see change, I'm not going to put my parking brake on, is my charger. So here's how I charge my iPhone. Plug this is a simple Apple USB lightning charger thing. I just put it in there, open this up, and plug that in like that. Now, tell me why Can-Am couldn't figure out how to put this here or here. I for the life of me, I can't figure it out. I'm going to unplug this because I don't need to charge this right now, and I'm going to put it back in there. But back to the list of 12 things I'd like to see change. So I've already mentioned a few. The rest of them, I've got to kind of get off the bike and shut it down. But before I shut it down, the next thing I want to see changed is, notice that my parking brake is not on. There's a reason for that. I'm going to shut the machine off without putting the parking brake on. I need 15 of those loud, piercing beeps, and anyone around me in my vicinity, thankfully there's no one around me, and that's why I parked here. 15. So if you want a Can-Am, keep the current configuration the way it is in terms of having an electronic parking brake and having this thing with the transmission where it won't go into gear in such a way that it'll stop the bike from, like most motorcycles, you put it in first gear and it's not going to roll. Okay, if you want to leave the transmission as is, fine. Can you please maybe give the warning with 3 chirps, or maybe 1 loud chirp, or 5 chirps? Does it have to be 15 chirps? That just drives me crazy, and I'd love to see Can-Am change that. So the next thing I'm going to mention is, and I knew this before I even bought the Spyder, but I'm going to just open the fuel filler. So the seat now is permanently failed. I'm not complaining about that. That's, everyone has heard of that complaint. But what bothers me is that I have to lift the seat up, undo this cap, and fuel up under the seat like this. Can-Am, please explain to me why you can't figure out a way. This is useless, and that's why you took it off. Good move. With the 2024 models, you took that off. Good move, Can-Am. I think the F3s have a gas cap, a traditional gas cap with a lock on it, like most motorcycles have, right here. Please do that with the RTs. Maybe put it here, put it somewhere, but please give us a fuel filler door that is not under the seat. It was a big improvement to have the seat in two parts, so you don't have to lift up this whole monstrosity, but this is still a pain in the neck, and I'd love to see you remove that. From the under the seat to somewhere either here, or anywhere else. The next change I'd like to see you make, and I haven't really seen this complained about anywhere except for me, and it could be this is just me, but I think I've seen a couple of comments on some of my posts from others that said, you know, I had that problem as well. So there's no front brake lever. All 3 wheels are all 3 wheel brakes are controlled by this pedal. That's great. Simplicity, I love it. It's beautiful. The problem is, for most motorcycles that I've ridden, which have been adventure, dual sport, sport touring bikes, the riding position is such that my feet are like this, and the brake is right here at my toes. I'm sorry, the brake lever is right here at my toes. So then I've got to get used to putting my foot up here next to the brake. That is fine. I'm okay with that as well. The problem is that sometimes I kind of overcompensate and put my foot too far forward. And when I do that and I press down, my toe hits this protector. And I love this guard. This guard is so great for so many reasons. Protecting against the element, rain coming up. I just love it. But if there's any way, Can-Am, to figure out a way to either move the brake back a little bit or adjust something so that the distance between the end of the brake and the beginning of the foot guard, or whatever you call this thing, would be just a little bit more, that would be super. The next thing, and I have these written down, if you haven't figured it out yet, these are all written down here because I'd never remember all of this. The next thing I'd like to see changed is, so we got a lot of plastic on this bike, on this motorcycle, so that everything's all covered up. I get it, I'm okay with that. So you really can't see the engine when you look at your Can-Am Spyder. But on most motorcycles, you can see the engine. It's, I say most motorcycles, I don't know of a motorcycle that is covered up like this, but that's okay. But on every motorcycle, every modern motorcycle that I've had, two-wheel motorcycle, when I wanted to check the oil, it was a simple process. Anybody who has a two-wheel motorcycle or who's ever had one knows what I'm about to say, but those of you who don't, on a traditional motorcycle, somewhere down at the bottom of either the crankcase or somewhere at the bottom of the engine, there's a little, let's say the size of a quarter, a little window right here. And only it's not against the plastic guarding the engine, because there is no plastic guarding the engine. It's actually built into the engine. There's a little window with oil in it, and there are little markings that indicate the proper oil level. And because most motorcycles sit on a side stand, a kickstand, what you have to do is just grab the motorcycle and straighten it up and make it so it's level. You'll see the oil settle in, and that's how you know if your oil is at the proper level. So my question, Can-Am, or my plea to you is there not a way to figure out some mechanism to keep some sort of opening here, some sort of hole, wherever the engine crankcase, wherever the oil window would be on a traditional motorcycle? Figure out a way to do that, because to check the oil on this, it's just like the gas. You've got to lift the seat. Now, because you've also got faulty seat shocks there, what that means is this is now a real pain in the neck, but this is almost like an automobile system where you got to pull this off and check it like with a dipstick. Can-Am, figure out a way to do it like most other motorcycles. Going back to the glove box, so I like having this compartment here. There's so much storage on the Spyder. It's one of the many great things about the Spyder is its abundance of storage. But I'd love to see this so it's lockable without having to lock the steering wheel. For whatever reason, I don't always want to lock my steering wheel, but I do want to keep this locked. I live in Niagara Falls. I live in a city, and like most cities, we have some crime issues and people doing mischievous things. And if there was any way to lock this, perhaps it has something to do with the key, that would be absolutely super. On the note of the key, this key has been much discussed on a lot of videos, and there are aftermarket providers that sell an accessory or accessories related to the key. But before I go into those accessories, I would love to see a keyless system with the key as like an emergency backup. But whether you do that or not, one of the things that people complained about with these keys, and I knew this before I bought the Spyder, was that there's no keyhole here. Why can't there be a keyhole? Now, I understand there's some sort of chip in there, but that doesn't explain it for me, because whoever it is that makes this plastic piece right here that goes around this chip, I don't know if that Can-Am does that, or if you have a fabricator or a third party that does it, if you outsource it, but why could they not just put a little notch on this, a tiny little plastic notch with a hole in it? So this would be like every other motorcycle and automobile key in the world, right? Where you could put a key ring in there and your house key goes on there. Now, I'm a minimalist. I don't have a lot of keys. I have this key and my house key. And one of the beauties for me of getting rid of the car is before I used to have my car Hyundai Kona key fob with a key ring and a house key, and then I had my motorcycle key with a key ring and a house key. Now I just have one key, but this key is kind of unique. Now, having said all of that, what I will say is I'm going to put a couple of things down on the seat, including my gum wrapper. What I will say is what sort of mitigated the fact that it doesn't have a key ring, I'm sorry, a keyhole here, is when the dealer hands you the Can-Am keys, they don't hand you this. What they do is they hand you this. And what this is a little plastic thing, a widget, whatever you call this thing, that has a hole in it, and it fits in perfectly and kind of snaps into place. It covers up the key. Now, once I realized that Can-Am did this, but it kind of made it okay for me. I said to myself, okay, that's okay that they don't put a hole in it, because this has a hole in it. So what I did was I took this little key ring, took my house key, put it on this ring, and I thought, okay, I'm fine with this. Can-Am, you don't have to make that change. However, I found myself leaving this key. What I would do is I would put my house key in my pocket. This is obviously here. And then when I'm done riding, I would pull this out and I might put this somewhere. When I was at Letchworth State Park shooting video for a YouTube video, I actually left this on a wall. And then I went shooting with my iPhone. Someone found this and they saw me walking around with a helmet and said, "Is this yours?" Thank heavens, because I don't know that I'd ever find it. And I was out like 80 miles from home. But I recently went out and bought a few of these Apple AirTags. And I bought a keychain for the Apple AirTag. Because of that, I purchased from Sling Mods their aftermarket key, whatever you call it, that goes over this thing and there's a hole in it. Once I get that, then this will come off and this will go on this key ring just like this. Now, I'm doing that because I don't want to separate my house key from my Can-Am key. Now, what I will tell you is, for some of you, you might say, you know what? I'm okay with this. This would work for me, and it might. And so I guess what I'll say is, I'd love to see Can-Am put a notch on this. I don't understand why they can't, but it's not the end of the world if they don't, because of this little mechanism that they created. The other thing I'd like to see them change, so let's start up the Can-Am, and I know all of you who have a Spyder know this, and those of you who are doing your homework on a possible purchase know it as well, but the way you start the Spyder is you turn the key on, okay, and you turn the parking brake off, but I don't have to do that because my parking brake is off, but normally you would take the parking brake off, and then you've got to read the safety card. Nobody is reading the safety card, but to get rid of that, you've got to hit the mode button. Can-Am, please. I'm sure there's an attorney who works at Can-Am who said, you've got to do that. But why don't I have to do that with the multitude of motorcycles I've had? Why just this one? And one might think that this is even safer than some of those motorcycles. Adding that extra layer of protection so that you can say, hey, we want everyone to read the safety card and we're going to force them to read the safety card, or, you know, you can't start the motorcycle, especially when there's an easy workaround. You just hit the mode button without reading the safety card. Can-Am, I don't get it. Please give up on that. The mode button serves only one purpose, and that is putting it on eco mode. I've yet to use eco mode. I'm planning a test of eco mode soon, but that'll come in another video. But Can-Am, basically get rid of that. Having said all of that, I absolutely love the machine. I love the fact that I've got a three-wheel motorcycle. I'm in a unique situation in that it is my only vehicle. I don't have a car. So some of the things that I appreciate or that like appeal to me might not appeal to others because you have cars. But for me, it gives me a lot more rideability than I would have had on my two-wheel motorcycle. I love the fact that the comfort on this thing, the comfort level is incredible. I recently had a backrest put on, but even before I had the backrest put on, the comfort level is just fantastic. It's fun to ride. I was out in the twisties recently. I shot a video of that ride, a couple of cool adventure bikes. It's fun to ride in any kind of situation, and the list of things that I could give you on why I like the Can-Am are numerous. But this video wasn't meant for that. This video was intended to kind of be a prod to Can-Am to make some changes for the next model year. And on that note, there's one thing that I'm forgetting as I'm leaving Fort Niagara State Park here that I had forgotten, that is on my list as part of the gas tank. So you have a 7-gallon gas tank, and for any kind of motorcycle that would be a large, huge, oversized gas tank. However, because it only gets 30 miles to the gallon, and most motorcycles get like 50 miles to the gallon, you really come up short when it comes to range. And I guess what I'm asking Can-Am is, if you can't make the engine more fuel efficient, can you give us another gallon? Can you make it 8? Can you figure out a way to give us just a little more fuel? I realize it's going to make the motorcycle a little heavier, and that'll affect efficiency when it's full. But if you could add a little range by adding a little fuel capacity, that would be greatly appreciated as well. But overall, Can-Am, thumbs up. For those of you who are on the fence, I will just tell you, I'm very happy with my purchase. And in terms of reliability concerns, and I had them before I purchased this, I really did, there's been not even a hint of a reliability issue. It's early, it's 1,000 miles, I understand that, but so far, so good. Thank you again for coming along on these rides. I really do appreciate it. I'm getting a lot of good feedback, and it just makes me feel like I'm doing something that's helpful to people. And thanks again. If you've subscribed, if you haven't, please do so. And otherwise, you have a great day. Bye-bye.